Hi, I'm Dan Costa, Editor-in-Chief and Chief Content Officer at Worth Media Group, and we are at the Lake Nona Impact Forum here in Lake Nona, Florida, and we're talking about the future of healthcare, and I am joined by Jennifer Artley. She is the SVP of 5G Acceleration at Verizon Business. Jennifer, thanks so much for taking time to talk to us.
Happy to be here.
So what is it about Lake Nona Impact Forum that is different than other healthcare conferences that you've attended?
Two things. The conference itself is actually incredible in the sense that it brings together so many players in the healthcare ecosystem. I mean, there's the obvious tier 1, tier 2 providers there, but there are also startups who are looking to really impact the industry based on their small piece of the pie. So, it's bringing together of so many different components. But it's also really important to us, Verizon, because we have a great partnership with KPMG. Here we are at KPMG's Lake House. Mm-hmm. And we just announced 2 weeks ago that we have 5G enabled this property so that they can benefit from 5G in their Ignition Center. So their Ignition Center is all about technological advancement in healthcare. And so they bring in a variety of independent software vendors so that they can develop cutting edge technologies leveraging the power of 5G.
Yeah, Lake Nona itself is one of the most, and I've covered where 5G is rolled out around the country. Not everybody has access to it. Not everybody has access to the really good 5G. Lake Nona has the really good 5G, which can really drive some significant innovations.
Absolutely.
One of the things we're coming out, I always get worried when I say we're coming out of the pandemic. The pandemic isn't completely over, but we've certainly come out of the worst of it. And we're coming away with some things that we did right, some things that we did wrong. What trends do you see sort of post-COVID?
I think two things that were born of the pandemic. First is a greater adoption of telehealth. And telehealth, remote health, requires much more advanced connectivity, both for the consumer, the hospital, the medical caregiver. And we're seeing actually quite an uptick in telehealth visits as a percentage of total doctor visits. So it used to be low single digits 4 or 5 years ago, and now it's 15 to 20%, which is a pretty sizable number and changes the way technology is employed in the healthcare conversation for consumers. The other trend we're seeing is that it's pretty clear that after patient quality of care, operational efficiency and the ability to maximize and optimize utilization of assets is the numbers 1, 2, and 3 priorities for our customers who are largely healthcare facility providers. And what's interesting about that is it's not just the assets. When we think of assets, we think about big machines or an ultrasound machine that rolls around the hallways of a hospital. But it's also the people, right? There is a supply-demand gap in terms of talent in the healthcare industry, and that is a real concern. So being able to improve the efficiency of both how a hospital is managed from its physical asset base, but also how it optimizes for its people are the two biggest concerns we're seeing from healthcare providers.
So a lot of the healthcare providers I've talked to, as we were coming out of COVID, they were saying, this huge spike in telehealth because it was necessary, it was required, and as a result, the government sort of looked the other way and was like, we just got to get through this crisis. Now that the crisis is over, I've heard a lot of healthcare providers say they're kind of worried that the regulations will come back and that telehealth won't get the same, treatment that it's gotten during the pandemic. Is that something you've seen or worry about at all?
I think from a regulatory perspective, there will always be, one step forward, 2 step back. That's a complex environment. But from a human perspective, and from, both consumers as well as caregivers, the ship has sailed, right? I mean, so there's an expectation that it's an option that's available, and as we increasingly are working with hospitals for that efficiency that we talked about, one of the key things they want to do is remote patient monitoring. Mm-hmm. So the ability to, give a customer, a patient, a wearable, and engage with them leveraging a 5G technology, but in the context of that patient, not just spitting out data for data's sake, but in the context of that patient, that there's an expectation there. We're also seeing an increasing number of medical providers, equipment providers, wanting to work with hospitals to be able to distribute those wearables so that we can really change the game. And if you think about what that translates to, it could be fewer nights in a bed in a hospital, which frees it up for the next person in need. And it could be possibly a longer stay at home and no return to the hospital because they're catching things real time remotely. So I think there's a huge opportunity, and while regulation is always something to be on top of, I think there is an expectation in the market right now that this is here to stay.
Yeah, there's also a greater focus. We've heard it a lot at the conference so far about the quality of life. And if you're able to get treatment at home and your doctor can monitor you at home, you don't have to keep going into the hospital or the doctor, like that creates efficiencies, but also improves the customer's life.
Absolutely.
So I think there's a lot of opportunities there. Are there any innovations or technologies that you're looking forward to seeing over the next couple of days here at the forum, or people you want to hear speak?
Well, it's an impressive lineup of speakers for sure. Karen Lynch was just amazing in terms of how she shared her story and how her personal story is actually influencing how she's guiding CVS. Mm-hmm. You know, that's really incredible. But from a technology perspective, I think it's the aggregation of many different types of technological ideas and advances that when they come together as you know, in one place, that's where it gets really exciting.
Yeah, across the industries, across disciplines,
yep.
and really across different philosophies.
But all related to healthcare.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
I'm Dan Costa with Worth Media. If you want to hear more about these topics, go to worth.com.